It's the Grot Orloff Show, November 29th, 2020. Um, haven't been on in a while. I've been spending a lot of time just kind of trying to figure out what's going on in the world. You've got a disputed election right now. We're really in a moment of uh, unprecedented history, and I don't think a lot of people even realize it because it's all being covered up by the media and the tech giants, but you've got um, most elections, not many people vote. Usually it's about most elections are decided by what 50-60% of the population, if even that. And now we've got all these swing states where in some cases more than 300-400% of the population voted, meaning that everyone voted, and then there were people that apparently that came back from the dead that voted, and some people that voted many, many times, and so it's a big, huge mess, and it looks like that the voting machines themselves were developed in communist countries and are created for fraud, but so anyway, all this is getting hashed out. They've got Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis working primarily as Trump's lawyers, and then you've got this other lawyer, Sidney Powell, who's working out on her own, not directly employed by Trump, and she's going after the voting machine fraud, and I think Juliana and Jenna Ellis are going after the problems with the mail-in ballots that were necessitated by people being too afraid, supposedly, to go to the polls, so they had to vote by mail. Anyway, that's all a mess. So I've been watching that on television and kind of a lot. And YouTube is what I call television. Basically, we got rid of cable and satellite, uh, I guess, a few years ago, and now I mainly get my entertainment from YouTube. And um, we have, I think, a lifetime subscription to HBO Max, but we didn't know how to access it because you can't get it on the Roku device. You have to have an Apple. So my wife just figured out over Thanksgiving how to beam it from her Apple phone to the television. So now we can watch. Because we only watched the first episode of Doom Patrol of the second season. We watched the whole first season, and then we tried to watch the first episode of the second season. We had a visitor over, and the first few minutes, shows some guy getting fucked up. Uh, shows a lot of inappropriate imagery, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe you could tone that down a little bit, DC Universe. Um, you know, it's really important for DC to make their heroes dark and edgy and uh, sexually weird and violent to show that they're adult. It's like the old HBO syndrome. If a show's on HBO, well, you've got to put the F word in it constantly, and you've got to have all this unnecessary everything just to make people realize, hey, you're getting something you can't get on the regular networks. Um, so they put that in there. Or kind of like Warren magazines would do that. Or we're going to show you this other stuff, because, we're almost R-rated here at Warren Publishing Company, so we'll show you a little bit of nipple here and there and violence that, uh, it's like the Tales from the Crypt TV show is based on comic books from the 1950s. And so they had an HBO TV series that was well made. Um, And the comic books were very violent, and they portrayed the violence that way, but then they added in all this language and nudity that weren't in the comics. And it would have been better if they just adapted those comics straight the way they were. Now, I know, and I'm sure in the EC comics, people cursed, and it was just $ asterisk, how they do it in comic books, the little symbols they put instead of cursing. So you said, well, of course, we're going to actually fill that in for the show, but it was done unnecessarily, I think. And then in EC Comics, okay, someone's having an affair, and then someone gets killed, and they come back from the dead. Well, you don't necessarily have to show it. And I would have set it in 1950s suburbia. I would have set all the episodes of Tales from the Crypt. I wouldn't have updated it to modern day 1980s or early 90s, whenever that was made. I would have set it all in the 50s, because when you've got it in the 50s and you got a Hugh Beaumont type guy and a Jim Cleaver type guy, and then all of a sudden one of them has an axe and is burying it in the other's forehead, then that gives you the actual feel of EC Comics. And EC Comics were great. EC Comics were, talked about them before. There was a company called Educational Comics, and they put out innocent comics and picture stories. They had picture stories from the Bible, where they would have Bible story adaptations in comics. And the man that ran that company went out on a motorboat and crashed and died. And his son, who was just out of college, inherited this comic book business, and he had no interest in comic books. His dad had been the guy that had first published Wonder Woman and all of that, and he'd been in comics since. He's the guy that kind of started them, and now he inherits this comic book empire and has no interest in it. So he decides, okay, I'm going to take all these titles and I'm going to switch them and to make them more interesting for me. I'm going to change it from, the name of the company was EC. I'm going to change it from Educational Comics to Entertaining Comics. And I'll have horror comics and crime comics and science fiction, because he was really into science fiction and horror. And then what he did is he came up with these great stories along with his associates, Al Feldstein and William Gaines was the guy doing it, and his father was Max Gaines that died. But anyway, so they start creating these great stories. They always had these tremendous twist endings. They were, I mean, it was as good as the Twilight Zone, but they did have violence that was pretty much, in some cases, R-rated kind of violence. But other than that, the comics, the R-rated violence was pretty much what pushed them over the edge. But they were so literate and so well drawn. The artists were the greatest artists in the field. And they were really the best comics really ever produced. And then they put out a humor title. Oh, they had war comics too. And they put out a humor title called Mad that Harvey Kurtzman worked on. And that comic was so brilliant. And, when I was a kid, I just finished second grade, and we were about to get to travel from Hampton, Virginia, where I'd lived for all of second grade, and we were moving back to San Antonio. I went down to the 7-Eleven where I went all the time to buy comic books, and there it was. I'd seen all these house ads in DC Comics for the longest time about this new comic that was coming called Plop, and there it was on the newsstand. I picked it up, that red cover with that Basil Wolverton freak with the long arms, and I flipped through it, and it was just like a DC horror comic, but with humor. And it was the EC, some of the EC mad artists, and it was like a combination of EC and DC, and it was the greatest thing one of the greatest things I'd ever seen. Plop #1. I picked it up, paid my 20 cents, and then put it in my little suitcase, and then we were off to San Antonio. And I picked up every issue of Plop, and I've since met someone who's a fellow record collector, and he had his letter published in the last issue of Plop. And I'll show you that. I'm going to go through my Plop collection in a video this week. I finally got a little bit of room here. This is the guest bedroom I'm in now. And this room had a queen-size bed in it. And I took that queen-size bed downstairs and put it next to the queen-size bed in the master bedroom. So now there's two queen-size beds together, so I can lay out any direction in bed. And it just kind of got to the point where my wife, our beagle, and myself, sometimes I was like almost falling off the bed. There wasn't enough room. So I'll bring the other one down and we'll have twice the room. Because our dog is nuts. And when she's awakened, she just lashes out at whatever. She doesn't know what's going on, and she'll just kind of nip at whatever. So you're in deep sleep, and you kind of shift and turn in your sleep, and the dog, all of a sudden you hear this sound like the little Zuni warrior in Trilogy of Terrors. You know, she doesn't bite hard, but you know, you don't like to be awakened by the little warrior doll with the spear from Trilogy of Terror. If you're my age, you know what I'm talking about. You can look it up on YouTube. Look up Trilogy of Terror. Yes, the dog is a little bit like that. I just put a couple of videos up that probably you think I'm out of my mind, but the Drusilla, our dog, was getting Thanksgiving leftovers, so I filmed it and put it on YouTube. That's mainly for the family that went back down to Houston because they cooked all this great ham and chicken. I wanted them to see that, you know, dog was getting some appreciation out of it too. And some of the videos I put up are more for myself or family, and so if you get entertainment out of them, great. So EC Comics and Plop. So, you know, I know what those kids who are now in their 70s that were there in the early 50s for EC Comics, that were 10 years old, 8 years old, the joy that they went when they went to the store, the drugstore, or whatever store, the spinner rack, or however they displayed the comics, you know, when they saw that first issue of Mad, or an issue of Mad, the color EC Comics Mad, before it turned into a black and white magazine, seeing that first Plop, I know how they felt. And of course now Mad is pretty much, I think it's in its final death throes. They just put out a Christmas issue. It had the same cover as last year's Christmas issue. And of course the Christmas issue cost like $10, $11 because all magazines are ridiculously priced now. So Plop was if you don't have a collection of Plop, you need to get on that, because Plop was wonderful. Anyway, so this is a guest bedroom, and I've kind of got some storage and junk over to this side, and over here I've kind of made it into a nice little place where I can come and read, and I can put out long boxes and start organizing better than I could in that comic room, because I'd almost just given up all of that. But I've got to get everything organized, and still. I'll show you kind of what it looks like. Of course, I don't know. I've got the camera in. Let's see. I've got these weird things. I used to buy a bunch of these at estate sales. They're shit. They're like these. You ever see these things? They're like from the 50s. I'll show you. They're like macrame poodles, right? But what they really are for, okay, there you go. They're for booze. See, you know, it's got like this, there are the eyes, there's the nose. You take its head off, and it's for booze. And I got a million. I got a few of these. I think I bought them all at one time. This is apparently a thing back in the 50s, you know, when poodle skirts were in. poodle, little poodles that actually contained booze. So, I got my 50s lamp here, and this is my radio that plays. This is my radio station. You saw me doing those radio, those little radio announcements. I mix this music in with my. I want to get a copyright strike. I mix this music in with my own voice, and then I beam it all through the house. Okay, I just picked up this book, yellow book stand. It's got monkeys painted on the side of it. So, let's see. I don't know really what you're seeing because these are autographed by Tempest Storm, and I mounted those squirt machine guns up there. Found a way to do that. Let's see. This is a wax figure of Hedy Lamarr. Got that years ago, about 20 years ago in Longview, Texas. She's dressed out as Cleopatra. They had Hedy Lamarr, and I guess she never played Cleopatra in a movie, but I guess they must have re-outfitted her in the early 60s when Cleopatra was in theaters with Elizabeth Taylor. And but Hedy Lamarr invented the device I'm talking to you on right now. She pretty much invented the basic concept for cell phones and radar. She was brilliant. I mean, she was just a brilliant genius. It's like Nikola Tesla was also a beautiful movie star, if that you can imagine that. But a lot of people don't know that about Hedy Lamarr. She's responsible for everyone walking around the mall now looking down at their hands. I'm going to head on over to Duncanville Books tomorrow and spend a little bit. I don't have much money, but the pandemic's kind of rough. I had intended to make some extra money, but I can't do that until this scare is over. Really. Let's see. What do I have to entertain you here? Oh, this is a book that this is the sequel to. I believe this is the sequel to All in Color for a Dime, which was one of the first of the big books about comic book heroes. There was the book called The Comic Book Heroes by Jules Feiffer that reprinted a bunch of stories, and I think that came out in the late 60s. And then this, Don Thompson and Dick Lupoff, they had put out a book called All in Color for a Dime. I've got that, I guess, in the other room in hardcover, but this was the sequel. So, it's got, I don't know, I assume all of you, I don't know how many of you, where you are in your collecting. You might be a new collector, and sometimes I'll stop and explain things to people that might just be new into comic collecting, and sometimes I won't know what's going on as far as new comics, and I'm seeing interesting things watching other people's feeds. I started to wasn't able to get out right before Thanksgiving and get the new Fantastic Four Antithesis with the Neil Adams art. I think it's issue 4. I don't know how many issues are in that series, but I've got to get that tomorrow when I get paid. That looks good. I still haven't read the first 3, but I've got them there ready to be read. And so I'm accepting. I'm going to try to see if I can't find new comics that entertain me, and so I don't want to be a total curmudgeon and just completely say that no new comics are good. Although I sure don't like the social justice warrior bullshit that I hear that that Marvel's apparently doing with a lot of their titles. Um, what else is entertaining in here? Um, just looking for something that might be comic book related that might be obscure. Gotta be some. Oh, this is that's the back because it's Japan. It's Japanese adaptations of Batman. They did their own Batman comics over in Japan, and so it's called Bat Manga. But you have to read it backwards. The cover's on the back because in Japan they read this way, and so it's converted into English. Yeah, this is volume 2. I guess I don't have volume 1. Um, oh, this is kind of neat. This is I believe this is before Bram Stoker's Dracula, Varney the Vampire, or The Feast of Blood. If it wasn't before, then it's right around the same time. Anyway, it's pulp stuff, the pulp, the penny dreadfuls they called them, and it's reprinted with original typeface and the original ghastly pictures. I have 2 volumes of this, Varney the Vampire. Well, shit, put that up later. So we're in a scary time. Some people think that Biden's going to be the next president, and they may not. It may not be, and then there's going to be some people freaking out. And if he does become president, there's going to be like 100 million or more people that aren't going to accept him as president. So either way, we're in for a little bit of a mess coming up, and so I've been glued to the television and trying to figure it all out. And had the family over. They came up from Houston, my wife's mom and her sister and her 2 sons, and they came and visited for a few days, and they cooked before they came here and brought all this chicken like I've never had. It had oranges. Apparently, it says oranges underneath it as a bed, and then it's cooked on that, and this ham, and it's all a lot of Cuban recipes from my wife's family, and because her mom is from Honduras and also has a lot of Cuban influence, and she has her sister is half Cuban, and so they, it was very great food, and then we had mashed potatoes and all this. We didn't have turkey. They don't like turkey, but it was tremendous food, and just and we had a visitor staying here. We had a visitor that came from California, that an old friend of my wife's from like high school, and he was homeless over in L.A., and he came and stayed for about a month back in May, and but at the time, then he left, and then he was staying with someone else, and then he was having problems with that person because they were kind of mean to him. So my wife said, "Well, you can come back and stay here for a few days until you find a better place." And he wound up coming back here and staying another month. And that was the bed that was in this room. And that was cramping my style because I was wanting to use this room to start organizing. And I'm going to do an organization video tomorrow, and you can see how it's all coming along. But anyway, as long as he was here, it was just driving me crazy. He doesn't watch these videos, but You know, it's just little things. Like every time I went in the bathroom, okay, everything was just because I'm used to this bathroom here is the bathroom I use. My wife hardly ever comes upstairs, so okay, the shower curtain's on the wrong side. The toilet seat's left up. I always like it down because the cats will jump, or could used to, might jump up on top and then they wind up in the water because they expect a flat surface there. And then just things you don't even want to know about. Just like, oh, it's this guy left all this horrible, slimy pubic hair kind of stuff in the drainer for the. I had to get that out. Horrible, you know. I'm just glad it's back to normal, where I can organize my records and my comic books, and I've got this new bookshelf that I got for just a few dollars at a garage sale. Let me show you the side of this thing. The top of it says something around about like don't monkey around, read. But I've covered that up with all these toys. But here, you see, it's got monkeys on the side. So in theory, at some point, I'll make sure all my Planet of the Apes stuff is on this bookshelf. But I haven't done that yet. Right now, I'm just getting things organized. I'm going to bring in a little TV on a little wheeled stand with an Atari 2600, set it over here. I've got a bunch of Atari 2600 games up there. I don't know if you can see them next to that bootleg Samantha from Bewitched. I bought that at some store years ago. They claimed it was a Bewitched doll, but it isn't. They just made some fake dress and hat and put it on there, but I got it for a few bucks, so I didn't feel horribly ripped off. It kind of looked cool, but it's not a real Samantha Bewitched doll. Well, since I last spoke with you, I had a problem with my other eye. I was having a problem over here with this little floater moving around. This is something that comes with age. I guess then on this side, I was starting, in my peripheral vision, I'd see like a flash of lightning, and oh shit. And I thought when I was in traffic and I looked to the left, I thought maybe light was reflecting on the side of my sunglasses, but apparently it's something that comes with old age. I guess the round part of your eyeball, I don't know, becomes detached from the back, and it's kind of, and then these are little floating, I don't know, I had a bunch in this eye, and now I think it's just one, but it's an annoying one that floats, and then you try to focus on it, it moves over there, it moves here, and then now I've got one kind of moving around here. So I went to the eye doctor again, and said, it's nothing, you know, you can do some eye surgery real easy, but then you'll get cataracts, like definitely get cataracts, and you'll have to have the surgery eventually. And I thought, well, I'll just live with this. He says, not going to affect. It's just annoying, but it's apparently most people, your brain learns to just filter out the unnecessary information. I don't know. I don't want to accept that I'm getting old, but I'm retired. I guess I'm getting old. I don't know. One of those things. But it's damned annoying because, I see that one. Now I got one in this eye. Then they're like fucking floating around. So once you turn 50, guys, I'm 55. That's something to look forward to. I don't know. But, oh man. It was great. The comic Crypt Keeper of Castle Hills did a fantastic video about a week and a half ago where he was showing that during this pandemic, what he's been picking up, comic book wise, because apparently, he was showing how on YouTube there are videos showing this is the hot comic book now. These are the hot comics. Everyone's going after these hot comics or these key issues, right? And he's been able to go and snipe and pick up all these great comics that aren't on people's radar because people aren't talking about them. And I just couldn't believe the great stuff he's picked up. He's got one of the Fantastic Fours that I have a 90-85% of the first 100 Fantastic Fours, but I mean I don't have the really early issues, and then I have the second issue of the Galactus trilogy, not the first, but I he got the one with Black Bolt kind of going like this, one of the early Inhumans issues, and he's gotten all these EC comics, and I thought EC comics were thousands and thousands of dollars. I always thought they're just completely unreachable, and I look on mycomicshop.com, and you can get the issues that aren't graded by the CGC for relatively affordable prices, and if you just pick up one or two a month, you could develop a kind of a cool EC comics collection. I had no idea that I just always thought they were way out of my reach. But some things change in collecting. Like Big Little books used to be incredibly expensive. But unfortunately, people aren't immortal, and the people that were little kids in the 1930s that read those Big Little books have passed on to the next world, and people today don't even know what those are, and they're not as interesting. So there's like a prime window for collectibles, I think, and once people are real interested in things from their childhood, and once it gets to be past a certain time, people don't know who Tom Mix was, or it gets to the point where I think the prices go down. I mean, obviously, but it seems like what's going on right now in the comic book collecting field is people are really into key issues. A lot of them are. So they'll want certain Fantastic Four issues, the one with the first Black Panther, which luckily I already have, and they'll want the Galactus trilogy, and they'll want Doctor Doom stuff. That's a Doctor Doom from the mid '90s there, from when that cartoon was on the air. That cartoon was interesting in that the first season I thought was terrible, and the second season was really well done, and I think it's on the Disney Channel if you want to see that. I noticed looking at the Disney Channel, the Marvel movies, they don't have any of the Spider-Man movies on there because I guess they're not really Disney owned. Their Spider-Man was loaned to Disney by Columbia or Sony or whatever they're called now. So I guess they'll be on a different streaming channel. My nephew, who's 3 and is just a toddler, is apparently one of the things that keeps him calm is Spider-Man. If you put on Spider-Man, so I put on the 1967 Spider-Man, and that kind of he looked at it, but apparently what gets him is that computer animated movie that has Miles Morales in it, and the real Spider-Man is kind of a middle-aged kind of doofus, but that's a good movie. I'm not knocking it, but and apparently it looks like from what I'm seeing, the new Spider-Man movie that they're making will have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, the older Spider-Man guys, and I'm hearing rumors that Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina from the best Spider-Man 2 from the best one, is going to be in this, and they've got J. Jonah Jameson from that first series, and then they've got unfortunately they're bringing Electro from that shitty Amazing Spider-Man 2. But they're apparently changing them up. So they're getting into the multiverse, and they're bringing in all these characters from past movies, and I don't know exactly what's going on. Like in this Wanda uh, this Scarlet Witch TV show. Um, um, I guess it's called WandaVision. They're going to have the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies, that actor that's an American Horror Story. That was, I'm telling you, Days of Future Past, the movie, the scene where Quicksilver, it's all slowed down, and it's Quicksilver Vision with Jim Croce's song Time in a Bottle playing. That was one of the greatest superhero scenes I've ever seen, because it showed the joy of having superpowers, the fun of it, instead of just being like Superman, as far as Zack Snyder, just kind of somber and these humans, and I have so much responsibility, and just that's an interesting thing. Zack Snyder was making Justice League, and the studio looked at him and said, "Holy shit! What is he? Superman's a bad guy. This movie's dark. Wonder Woman goes in to save these people, and they all get blown up. It's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's making this Ayn Rand, objectivist, dark, depressing bullshit." And then Zack Snyder's daughter, unfortunately, committed suicide, so the studio said, "Oh, we'll use that." And they came in and said, "Look, why don't you just, you're grieving, your daughter passed away, why don't you just go and deal with that, and we'll get someone to finish the movie, no big deal." So they bring in uh, um, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer guy that made the first two Avengers movies, right? uh, Man, I don't know why my old age, it'll come to me in a second, his name, but anyway, so he comes anyway, he comes in and finishes up Justice League and changes the coloring of the whole final battle in Russia and makes it red, because in the DC Comics it's red. And he brings the actors back and films new scenes to try to make it lighter in tone, less depressing. Has scenes at the beginning where Superman's a good guy. He's not this dark guy dressed in a black suit. And of course, Superman, whatever this British guy that plays Superman, was off filming Man from Uncle, or I think, or some I Spy, or some modern ripoff of an old TV show, and he had a mustache. So he said, "Well, y'all come back and film some new Superman scenes for you." And the studio said, "You can't shave your mustache because we need it to match with the scenes we're filming." So they said, "Okay, we'll film you with the mustache on. We'll just CGI it out." And it made him look like some weird. It didn't work. So that was one of the. But anyway, so you wound up with this movie that was okay. It was entertaining, but it was this weird mixture of two different styles. And really, it would have been better if Zack Snyder had just finished it out in his style, and then it would have been the work of one person, and then we could have complained about what one guy did. But anyway, it wound up being what it was, and people were kept clamoring, saying, "We want to see what Zack Snyder would have done." So now HBO Max is throwing some money at him and said, "Okay, finish your movie. We'll run it on cable, on our streaming channel." And so he's filming like a 4 or 5 hour long movie with the way he originally intended it to be, or supposedly how he originally intended it to be. And now, man, what is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer? What is his name? Anyway, I hear that director's being canceled because he was making some show for HBO that actually sounds interesting. I don't know what it's called, but it's some superhero show set in the Victorian age or something. And he says, "Well, I'm gonna bow out with all this stuff going on with the Wuhan virus and everything. I think I just better, it's too much pressure." So he says, "I'm stepping down. I'll let someone else finish the show." They say it's really because I haven't. I need to read more about this, but supposedly Warner Brothers was investigating complaints about how he acted on the set of Justice League when he was finishing up Zack Snyder's movie. and uh, and apparently the guy that played Cyborg, apparently Cyborg had a big role in the original Justice League. Even though, as far as when I was reading comics, Cyborg was never in Justice League. He was in the Teen Titans, and maybe he's been in the Justice League at some point. But he didn't really seem to fit, at least at the formation stage of Justice League. But he was thrown in. But anyway, apparently you could see from the original trailer that there was a lot of Cyborg story left out, because him playing football as a high schooler and everything, and all his regret and angst at being turned into a cyborg, android, whatever. So he apparently has been very vocal and complaining about the guy whose name I can't remember, that he was supposedly wanting to change the tint of his skin, the color of his skin in post production or something like that, and now and he was rude to people, or I don't know. But with the current cancel culture, apparently they're going after him. Whedon, Josh Whedon. See, it takes a while when you're 55 sometimes for these names to come back to you. Yeah, that's what I was hearing about the new Justice League. The next Marvel movie apparently is going to be around Christmas. Apparently, it's going to be the TV show WandaVision, and I guess Black Widow's still May, and whether that'll be in theaters or just on Disney Plus or Disney Now or whatever they call it. I still haven't finished Mandalorian. I've only saw a few episodes of the first season. They seem pretty good, although nothing new. It was all stuff from the original trilogy. It seemed to be there to please fans. It was cool that they decided to go with a spaghetti western approach. Apparently, everyone's upset here in the second season that baby Yoda ate some eggs, and everyone's flipping out that was so wrong for this baby to eat some eggs of some living creature or something. People are going fucking nuts with this pandemic. Absolutely nuts. On the highway, people drive like maniacs. We can't allow this to ever happen again. This is just a bunch of bullshit, and it's just not. Someday it'll all come out what really happened. Maybe sooner. Maybe it won't happen until we're all gone. But there's a lot more under the surface to all of this. And let's just hope everything. You really need to pray, and you need to pray if you're a praying person, that things will turn out all right, because regardless of what you think of Trump, he's there. He's what's keeping some really bad people from getting at you. He's there as a bulwark against them coming in and getting at you. If he's not there, oh brother, you're going to have a lot less money. You're going to have a lot less freedom. You're not going to be happy. And say, well, at least I'll have a president that's nice and doesn't cuss. Biden cusses. Biden's not a nice man. Biden's son is not a nice man. And he's also... You need to understand what the CCP, the Chinese government's really like. And you don't want them to get more inroads into this country, because they have a tendency of removing your organs and giving them to other people, and and this social credit score stuff that they do over there. If you post things that are bad on the computer, if you don't recycle, your social credit score is going to go down. The new thing they're doing is, if you buy too many video games or you play too many video games, your social credit score goes down. And then what happens is you can't get on an airplane, you can't buy a house, a lot of you lose more and more rights, and they're trying to bring that in this country. You got to be careful of the tech giants and people that run oh man, that guy doesn't even look like a human being that runs Facebook. And I'd say he looks like Data from Star Trek, but no, he looks like he just looks really, there's something really wrong. And then the idiot that runs Twitter, is it the Twitter guy with the long beard? Thinks he's in the Civil War. And then the guy that runs this YouTube, I think he's, I forget his name. But they don't want a lot of information getting out about what's really going on. And but you got to look for the information. You got to be aware that things are going on. Oh, look at this. COBOL, Logic and Programming, 3rd edition. Yeah, I don't know. This is a college textbook. Not one of mine. This must have been my older brother. What year is this from? Oh, man. 3rd printing, November 1976. I think this is when the computers ran with these punch cards. They were about this big. And because I remember going up to the University of Texas, Arlington with my brother, probably when he was taking this class, and he'd feed these cards in with the computer programming. And that was some. Here's Bullwinkle. Just picked this up for about $1. Gotta like Bullwinkle. Sometimes things like this will take your mind off the fact that we're this close to moving into communism. We gotta be careful, and we can't let this level of corruption ever happen again. I mean, if Biden gets in, really, after this massive fraud, I don't know that I would ever even want to vote again. Oh, man. This is weird. Animal Train. But look at what it says in here. Love, Uncle Jay and Aunt Becky, Christmas 1979. That's tricky. This is a book not from 1979, or is it? No, it can't be. See, there's no UPC code. This is a book from the 50s, and someone just re-gifted it. It's like, I'll just give you this. I won't spend any money. I'll just give you this book from when I was a kid. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Although, during talking about all this politics and how it affects us in our hobby, a book like this, right? During Obama's presidency, they passed a law. You can look this up. That it's illegal to sell books like this to children. Books made prior to 1990 or 1980, you could not sell to children. If you have a garage sale and you sell it, you better make sure you can sell it to collectors, but you're not supposed to sell it to little kids. Why? Because back then, in the 50s, they had lead in the paint, in the coloring on the pages, and that it could poison the kids. Is that really the reason they don't want kids to have older books? Or is it because they might see how things used to be? If you only want kids to accept your current reality of what the world is supposed to be like, if you only want them to see books about the rainforest, if you only want them to see books about how horrible it is that we breathe carbon dioxide out into and ruin the planet, then you only want them to see new books, you know, and that are have the proper level of programming and everything that they want in books. So it's like a 1984 kind of thing where they try to get rid of the older books and keep them out of the hands of the kids. But I collect. That's another thing. I collect these old children's books. I found this at a garage sale. 365 bedtime stories. This thing. Oh man, see, this was regifted too. To Ivan from Agnes, December 25th, 1939. And then it says Henry J. Litzman Jr., February 10th, 1967. So this was given as a gift in the 30s and then as a gift in the latter 60s. But, yep. Depression era bedtime stories. I get this shit all the time when I go to garage sales. Tomorrow I will show you comics. I promise. I promise. I promise. Oh, there's the 10-cent plague, the great comic book scare, and how it changed America. If you're interested in those horror comics that I was talking about earlier, this is something you can look up. Unfortunately, we have to enrich Amazon because what they're trying to do with all this closing, everything, is they're trying to run all the small businesses out, and make it where only Amazon is making billions of dollars. This is a book that you used to be able to get at half price books. It's a real thick thing. It's got all kinds. It's got reprints from the Eerie publications. It's got 50s. It's got all kinds of shit. It's it's all black and white comic book reprints. What else do we have here? Tales to Astonish. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and the American Comic Book Revolution. Oh man, cool stuff. What else do I have? Star Trek, Mission to Uranus. No, Mission to Horatius. That must be Horatius. How about that? How about that one? Oh, what else do I got here? How to Take Better Home Movies. I probably need to read this. People are complaining about my camera work. The Lone Ranger Rides North. How about that? How about that? Written by Franz Stryker in 1946. Oh, this one's got a dust jacket. I didn't even know I own this. I mean, it's like, when did I buy this? I have no fucking idea. The Lone Ranger by Franz Stryker. How about that? It's cool. When you run out of money, you're forced to go back to the bookshelf and say, wow, I've got all this cool stuff. I didn't even know I had it. Great thing about pandemics, huh? This is from 1936. This is in great condition. The Lone Ranger. Yes, indeed. Son of a bitch. What else do I got here? I won't keep you too much longer. How about Space Monsters? other books in the Eerie series. This used to be in a library. Yes. Yeah, man. This is from, I would say, I would guess about 75, 76. Let's see if I'm right. 77. See, I know my typeface. I know my Flash Gordon. You can see this whole damn serial on YouTube. You need to watch it. Flash Gordon. Sometimes they'll call it Space Soldiers because they call it that on television. When it first came out on television in the 50s, 60s, you got to watch the original Flash Gordon. It's just awesome. I'm going to close out. I will be back about this time tomorrow with amazingness. This video, it's been a while since I talked to you guys, so I thought I'd say hi. I'm going to go from here into the bathroom stall. No, that sounds bad. I'm going to go into the shower stall, and I'm going to film some radio voiceovers so I can see what's going on my radio station now. Some bubblegum music. Yes, indeed. Oh, that's my I guess that's my catchphrase. Yes. God damn it. Son of a bitch. That was a disaster. Not too bad. Hopefully not. Oh shit, it is a disaster. Fuck. I had the camera mounted in a precarious place. So now this toy, shit. This toy is broken. Can I fix it? Maybe. Shit. Let me try to fix this. I will sign off and I'll see you later.